What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode 55 of the not 55, no, it's about 30 off. 85 of the Madness. I am
Nailed it.
Got it. I am one half of the Madness, Rob Lange. The other half, my wonderful counterpart, Jessica Town. And Jess, you know, we've been doing that thing on Squawker throughout this second round of the NBA playoffs for the Sixers at halftime. And when we last talked to each other, it was Sunday night, and we both said to each other, we'll be back here doing this again Wednesday after recording our show for Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yep.
And, you know, they say that sports gods don't forget, and it was almost as though the sports gods said, you remember the double doink? Here's the quadruple doink.
Let's double that.
Right in your face. You're not taking this one. And with that, the Sixers season came to an abrupt ending after just a tremendous basketball game that saw a little bit of everything back and forth from both the Raptors and the 76ers. The Sixers looked like they were done. Down 5 with a minute and a half to play or 2 minutes to play. And then before you know it, Jimmy Butler's tying the game with 4 seconds left after the rarest of rare sightings, which is a missed free throw from Kawhi Leonard. And you're thinking, okay, overtime. But I can remember the minute he scored the layup, turning to my friend that was watching the game with me, Jamal, and saying, there's still 4 seconds left. And that's a lot of time for Kawhi Leonard. But my fear was that they lost them somehow. They got screened off. They played tremendous defense. They're both there. The only thing that I'll say is Ben kind of stopped and let Joel, but Joel's hand, there is a freeze frame, is inches.
Yep.
And it just shows you the cyborgness of one Kawhi Leonard. One that, Jess, if you remember back last summer when you said, I don't know if he has the heart, and I sat here and said, damn it, this kid can play.
I didn't say I didn't know if he had the heart. That's not what I said.
What did you say?
I said I didn't know if the way his personality is would have meshed well with like a Joel Embiid or a Ben Simmons. That was what I said. I didn't know if he...
You average as much points as... I don't care how you act. You could be as stone-faced. I don't care. I love Kawhi Leonard. The guy is...
Can you give me some sound, please?
Oh, you don't have any sound?
No.
Why not?
I don't know.
I mean, I have sound.
No, I mean on my phone.
Oh, on your phone?
Yeah, I need constant sound to hear a little bit.
Oh. So because you want to mock his laughter? Guess what? I would laugh like that all the way to the NBA Finals if I had it. Okay? I would laugh.
So funny. It's so funny.
It is, because you could tell now why he doesn't ever laugh. But regardless... Listen, you know, part of being a sports fan, you're obviously a fan of your team, and you dislike the opponents when you're playing them, but you have to.
He's so good.
You have to respect.
Yeah.
How good he is. Literally, I just kept calling him a cyborg the entire series. Nothing phases him.
No.
Him hitting that shot, him screaming, was the only bit of reaction I saw from him ever.
It's like in his post-game presser, he was just like, yeah.
He's like, yeah, you know,
when
I'm just
they're
glad
like,
I made
there's
it.
never been a buzzer beater Game 7 game-winning shot, and he went,
Yeah, and it was...
Who does that?
It was...
What is that?
It was just so unbelievable. It was one of those moments in sports where right after it happened, you're in astonishment, right? You're staring at the TV. And I almost got like this awkward smirk / smile, almost because you don't know how to react. You're like, did that really just go down that way?
No, it wasn't a smirk. It was my jaw on the floor that I physically couldn't pick back up.
I literally
the fact that I was able to pick it back up for the show today is amazing in itself.
I literally gave like a chuckle. Like I gave a huh. And I just sat there, and I'm like watching the replay, and I'm going, wait a minute, wait. That ball hit the front of the rim.
And then the back of the rim, and then the other side of the rim.
But just off the first bounce, just 99 times out of 100, a ball hits the front of the rim, it just bounces away. It doesn't bounce straight up in the air. How the hell?
Believe me, I'm completely aware.
It's like they had magnets on that thing.
Yeah.
They had a basketball magnet on that thing, pulling it to the rim. Once it bounces on the rim the second time, I knew it was in. Because you saw the trajectory wasn't bouncing very far away, and you were like, oh, no. And, in a couple years where we haven't had that Philly-esque moment, that was a Philly moment. And ironically, and you saw a lot of people bring this up right after, it's the second time we've had a Philly-esque moment in the wonderful country of Canada, in the wonderful city of Toronto. People were starting to put up Kawhi's yelling face next to the infamous Joe Carter in 1993 when he hits the home run to win the World Series in Game 6 against the Philadelphia Phillies in Toronto. And, it's been a weird couple of days. Trying to kind of delve into how do we feel. I mean, the obvious feeling is upset. We wanted to see this thing go further. It was a lot of fun. We loved it. And then, the exit interviews kind of got the conversation moving in a different way. And we're going to I know the Phillies are playing. I've had a couple people say to me, why don't you talk about the Phillies more? I said, because they're not the story yet. They're going to be here now in the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
But today is the day. This week is the week for us to kind of delve in on the Game 7, on the exit interviews, and on kind of what we see, what we hope happens here in the future for this team. And that's what we're going to do today. But before we do, the madness is always brought to you by ProSportsNotes.com, powered by WildfireRadio.com, where you can catch us every Friday morning, 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time for all those West Coast viewers that we have. I don't know. Maybe there's some out there.
There might be one.
When I was doing the show by myself, there was someone listening like Russia. So I don't know. People listen all over the place.
All right. I'll take it.
Yeah, so you could get the podcasts on iTunes or anywhere podcasts are found. Just search The Madness with Rob Lange. You can also watch us live on YouTube. We are there right now. You can see I'm dressed up very classy today. I'm here for a classy emptying of our soul.
I'm not.
I see some arguments today. I've looked forward to the show, but feared it because Jess and I obviously we didn't do a show last week, and we've done the halftime things. But the way that this season ended is very interesting to me, and I've taken a hard line as I've been thinking about this on a couple situations, on a couple guys. One being Joel Embiid, and I know in this city you don't want to criticize this guy, but. When you look at what his play was really for most of this series, offensively, I have some issues with it, and I think it goes to what Jess has been yelling about all season. He's got to be in better shape, in every which way. So we'll get into it all, but Jess, we have to talk about the game. It's almost a healing process to get it out there.
No, it's not. I've completely blocked it out already.
Okay, I haven't. It happened. And if you didn't know that it happened, you'll know tonight if you flip on the TNT or ESPN or whatever channel it is.
Flip on the Eastern Conference Finals, and the Sixers will not be there.
And the Sixers will not be there as Toronto is in Milwaukee. And it's a shame. It's a shame right now that I don't know how much basketball I can watch right now. Because in the West, you have Dame and CJ versus Steph and Durant. Like, it's cool matchups, and even though obviously we wanted the Sixers to be here, Giannis versus Kawhi, you have two of the hottest guys in the league right now who are going to go battle it out now in the Eastern Conference Finals for a trip to the first NBA Finals in a while where I look at a team and say, the Warriors could get beaten. Now, after last night, it's a stupid comment, I guess, because they seem to find their stride. At least Steph did.
But if KD comes back, that all changes.
Yeah. So, I mean, anything could really happen, but I'm burnt out. And this 7-game series, the emotional highs, the emotional lows that we had, the back and forth, the aggravation to the jubilation You like those words, don't you? I could tell.
No, I'm sorry. I was reading a text message from Patrick.
Oh, she's not paying attention to me.
No, I just didn't hear that last sentence. Say it one more time.
I said the aggravation to jubilation in this series has left me emotionally drained, and I'm having a lot of trouble getting back in there. Now, like, for me on Sunday, what was probably good for me, and I know that you hate it, so that's fine, but was literally right after the game, it was my ability to have to go right into another passion of mine, which obviously was Sunday night, which was literally going and watching Game of Thrones afterwards. But it's not. But we're going to talk about Game of Thrones later.
I'd be able to get into it if there weren't freaking dragons.
Okay, sorry you don't have fantasy in your life.
I just don't. That's for me. That's just not what I'm into. If it was,
but that doesn't make it terrible. It just means that you don't.
No, it just means that I don't like it, and I also struggle to figure out why everyone loves it so much.
Well, we're gonna get into a lot of that because in my
that's all. Whatever. Well, I just can't get into it. If it was dragonless and it was literally just battling for whatever. I could get into that.
Well, no, but we'll talk. This is Madness brings that up and kind of brings up fans of the show, so we'll have an opportunity to talk about that.
Great.
But Sunday night was hard, and man, did it not seem like Monday's weather in the Delaware Valley just was just a culmination to everything?
Yeah,
it was bad. But Jess, where were you? Where'd you watch it? How'd you feel? Give us your.
I was at home after being out in the rain all day. Sophie had field hockey games all day. She had one at 1 and one at 4. And my mom for Mother's Day said we all had to be there. So we sat in the car and watched it after we also went to eat with one of my grandmothers in between her 2 games. And it was pretty funny because one of our very good friends, he was in Italy all semester. He was abroad, and he got back on Saturday. So they had, everybody over, and everyone was there, and it was a big party night. My family, I don't think they got home until 5 a.m. Mm-hmm. I was not there because I was at a dance competition. I went to bed at a decent hour and felt fantastic on Sunday. Them, not so much. So we went to the Great American Pub, got some greasy food and breakfast, and then went and watched the second game. And by the time that game was over, it was already 5 o'clock. So we went back and just kind of all sat on the couch and watched it. Actually, Andrew did leave us to go. He went to watch Game of Thrones live instead of watching the Sixers, which...
That's a violation. I had a couple people do that. What
that.
I did was, it's a show, you record it, and literally, me and my buddy who's a big Game of Thrones fan as well, we watched the game, kind of decompressed for 5 minutes and said, look, let's go get our mind off of this for 90 minutes and
so
enjoy
I was sitting
ourselves.
there and it was just me, my mom, my dad watching it happen, screaming at the TV. And it's funny because my mom, she gets so mad. I mean, my mouth is horrible initially, but put me in front of a Philadelphia sporting event and there's just absolutely no control. And she gets really mad. So we've gotten to the point where I'm just like, listen, during these serious games, you just gotta let me go. And I felt kind of bad after yelling at the TV the way I did during this game. It was not good. But yeah, just me and my mom and my dad watched it. Jaws hit the ground. I saw Joel Embiid cry, and then I was like, well, there go I was sad and about to cry because I get emotionally attached to this, this. Mm-hmm. I get emotional. So I was like, I got it. Okay, I'm not going to do it. And then I saw that, and I was like, well, and it all went to hell in a handbasket, and I exploded.
Let's talk about that for a minute. I'm totally okay with a guy crying. I have no issue with a guy showing that much emotion, and I had no issue with Joel Embiid showing that much emotion.
He's an ugly crier.
I really wish there weren't cameras around in his embrace with the girlfriend. I'm not mad at him for doing it, but it was just it I don't know. There was something about it that I was just like...
I just felt uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it was
because so from the one angle, from the one side, so I guess from Joel's left side, you don't really see how bad it is. From John Clark's footage, you see all the cameras in the background. You're just like, walk away. Like, leave them alone.
They should have left him alone.
I don't have a problem with Joel and his girlfriend. I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with everyone like filming it the way they did. And I guess that's the nature of it.
I mean, that's why. Like in me, like if it was one of those things where he gets up after the press conference and as he's walking off, you see him. I would. There was just something about that scene that just
it like hurt my heart, and it hurt my heart even more that like he had all those cameras in his face.
Yeah,
I
don't know. I wish. And look, it's easy for us out here, but I wish he would have realized it and just said, "No, let's do this later." Like, it just walked away. I didn't.
But maybe
it was awkward. It was awkward.
I don't think it was awkward. I think it was just like it made me uncomfortable for them. But I guess both of them are probably used to it at this point with the circus that it is. But like, maybe that's just some people. He's not very public about his. Like they're not very public about their relationship. Like it's not all over social media. It's not everywhere. Right. They're not over dramatic about it. So like we don't know how significantly close they are. Like for me, for example, I mean, granted, Joe and I have been together for almost 6 years, but like he's also my best friend. So when things like obviously nothing of that magnitude, but if something like that were to happen, like he would be like the first person that I wanted to see, and like hugging him like that would make me feel better. So if that's how Joel Embiid feels, and if he was just like, I just need to see her, it'll just help.
Yeah.
More about it's just like the way that the cameras were in his face. I'm just like, because I guess here's the thing, like in that moment, there's probably nowhere else that they could have been or gone that would have made it. Like she's not gonna go in the locker room. You know what I mean? Like
right.
It just it's you kind of see you see the media circus and the ridiculousness that is expected and surrounds these athletes, and I talked about it with Carson Wentz on Monday a little bit. Like that's something that we talked about. Like
which we haven't mentioned to our listeners.
No, we'll talk about it. But, like, it's one of those things that, you sit and you talk with these guys and you see things like this and you remember that they're human. Like, they're also human beings. So when you're out here, like, tweeting about, whatever, however you feel or whatever you think about Joel Embiid crying or, hugging his girlfriend and like, they're also human, and sometimes we fail to remember that. And people I think we've talked about this before. People put athletes on this pedestal and expect them to, be great, always do the right thing, take their emotions, take their feelings out of it. And at the end of the day, like, they're also humans. Like, Joel's 24? Yeah. He's 24 years old. He played, like, he knows that had to be a culmination of, he knew he wasn't right. As much as, he does need to take better care of his body, eat better, all that kind of stuff, he can't control if he gets the flu. You know what I mean? Like, he can't control if all of a sudden, you and I have both had the flu before. You know how awful you feel. There's only a certain amount where you can, I saw people like, oh, if I get the flu, I can power through and go to work. Oh, can you power through to sit at your desk all day, jackass? Yeah. Can you? Me too. Even sometimes that's too much, like when you feel awful, you could tell in his face, he just looked awful. It probably was a culmination of we've talked about how he feels responsible in those kinds of situations. He knew he was a little bit late getting over there to Kawhi. He knew that he wasn't 100% and giving his best performance this whole series. So it's just, and he's 24 years old. Like, that's a hard thing. For anybody suffering a hard loss like that at any age, it's just that. It's hard. It's not easy. And for, it's one thing to expect certain levels of performance of these young athletes. It's another thing to expect them to, not everyone is a cyborg like Kawhi. Not everyone is emotionless like that. Right. You can't just expect them to take their human emotion out of everything.
Right.
And when you look at the cameras in front of it, it's one of those things where I'm just like, he's a really good basketball player, and he signed up to be in the NBA, but like, he didn't sign up for that BS. He didn't sign up to have that part of his life broadcasted to the world like that and scrutinized. No,
he didn't. But once you go out into that hallway where the cameras are,
sure.
It's fair game. I mean, unfortunately, because of the career you're in, that's fair game. You did kind of, in a way, sign up. So, like, that's why I said I kind of wish that they would have had their moment, after.
But you can't just suppress emotion and then be like, all right, I'm going to be sad
depends,
about
like
I'll be sad about it in 10 minutes.
Granted, if it wasn't him saying, I want to see her, and she just came down, that should have been nipped. They're like, no, just give it a minute. Look at all these cameras. Do you really want, someone should have said, do you really want that here? Like, I'm saying.
Maybe he was just like, I don't care.
Yeah, I know that.
At that point,
but I'm saying if it wasn't that. If it was she came down to console or whatever it might have been.
I'm sure if he didn't want her down there, she wouldn't have been down there. And if he knew she was down there and didn't want to see her, he wouldn't have gone out there to see her. Like, it's one of those things that, like, you know how your significant other reacts after a loss like that. I dealt with it for years. Like, I get it. I know how they work. I know how they operate. I know how they handle it. And I know how I'm going to act accordingly based on that. She has to know how he reacts. And he either asked for her or she was down there and he knew he wanted to go see her. If she was down there and he didn't want to see her, he wouldn't have seen her. You know what I mean?
I got you.
Like,
I got you.
He probably was just like, at this point, I don't care. And I'm sure he probably looks back on it now and he's like, Jesus, I wish all those cameras weren't there. But in the moment, he probably was like, I don't care. I just want to see her.
Yeah. Now, to talk about him on the court, okay, I know that the flu knocks you out. I'm not questioning that. There's no doubt about it. And in games 3 and 4, or excuse me, 4 and 5, it was evident. By game 6, where, if I remember correctly, you had 2 days off between 5 and 6. And then, you had 1 off. Mm-hmm. Yes, they won the game. Yes, he was a plus 40. Yes, he made his impression on the defensive end. But in games 6 and 7, and yeah, I get it. He had the 21 points in game 7. I was very frustrated with the way he was playing offensive basketball. Now, is some of that on the game plan? Yes. But the game plan is being enforced in that way. And this is what people don't get when they want to say, why is Brett doing this? Why is Brett doing this? Because when Joel went down to the post, he allowed Marc Gasol to take him out of his game. He didn't play like the truly dominant big man that we've come to know. Mm-hmm. Give some credit to Marc Gasol, but to me, and this is more towards the maturity of his game, to me, he cowered to Marc Gasol down there. And because of that, played outside more on his own, and then Brett kind of said, well, if he's not going to give us anything down there but clog the lane, then we have to space it out so we can get guys to drive the lane. But they don't have that team yet because of a Ben Simmons not being able to shoot the ball yet, and things like that. So, yes, Brett probably should have forced the issue a little bit more, but Joel needed to enforce his own will a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And that's something, when I look back at this series, is going to be the frustrating part. Because you look at how close that game was in Game 7. You look how he had 21 points, yeah. But if he plays a little more in the post, when they go on that 16-0 run in the third quarter, is it that close?
You know what my problem is, though? They got 3 other All-Stars on that team who did not do anything to help or support that problem. No one was out there hustling to get rebounds. No one was out there fighting for their life like it was Game 7, like they should have been. Honestly, I don't think they wanted it enough. I think Joel did, and I think by playing 45 minutes and giving everything he had out there. Did you see the way he chased Kyle Lowry around that last night?
Well, I'm not even as worried about Game 7. I know what you're saying.
But what I'm saying is, watching that game, I said from the beginning, Toronto looked like they wanted it more. And when we talked at halftime, I said, if they lose this game, it's because they didn't want it badly enough. And I think this is something that this is going to stay with them. This is going to stay with them, and they are going to think about this every single day until October. Mm-hmm. And I truly think that this is it's unfortunate that it had to happen. Did I want it to happen? No. but I truly think that this is a learning. This is going to be something that helps.
Look, it really has to.
Helps
it
Ben
has
and
to.
Joel in their career.
I mean, it has to. It has to help the maturation process continue to grow. And,
that's my bad. I hit a button.
Now you're playing stuff.
No, I was trying to post about our show.
Every time I talk, you're playing sound.
That's my bad. It's my bad.
You don't want me to speak.
That's on me, fam.
All right, so, we move on from the game. Look, there's so much to talk about. One of the things, the final 3 possessions for the Sixers, or 3 of those late 3 possessions, where it was a couple shot clock violations and a Jimmy Butler have to toss up a prayer, is on many people. Okay, one, it's on Brett Brown. Mm-hmm. Especially coming out of a timeout. There has to be something that gets you a shot earlier. The second possession
they had him. They just didn't take him.
The second possession I put on Jimmy Butler because he started the ISO with 20 seconds and just continued to dribble around even though nothing was there. Get the ball out of your hand. Go and get it off, whatever. But it just and then the third one, and look, and all of them go back to, and this is kind of what I put on Brett Brown as well, is it all was with Joel with the handoff and the just standing there. Once you hand the ball off, get your ass down low. And then the one was actually he drove the ball the wrong way. He drove into the double team, kicks the ball across the floor to Jimmy, who didn't know what the clock was.
Yeah.
And that can't happen either. And everyone wants to blame those 3 possessions, but the fact of the matter is they still were able to come back and tie the game from there.
But they wouldn't have needed
And
that.
To me, those 3 possessions don't matter if you rebound like you had all playoffs. But to speak to your point of Toronto wanting it more, they wanted the rebounds more. And that was a major difference in this game.
Yeah.
They must have had, I'd say they had 12 to 18 points off of second chance. And in a 2-point game, that makes a difference. Even cut that number in half. Cut that number in half and the Sixers win. And it's just not to be. And it was almost, as you said, it was almost, not this part, but it was almost poetic that shot went in. And the reason I say that was because at the end of the day, when we look back on that game, and it was a great game, and the Sixers fought, and they battled, and they toughed it out. But did they deserve it? I don't know, because they allowed the 50-50 balls to go the way of Toronto way too many times in that game.
And that's what Toronto had been doing. Toronto had been making sure that they got back on defense so they couldn't deal with Ben Simmons in transition. They didn't want that problem. So Toronto was letting all their rebounds go.
Right.
They changed that slightly. Is something wrong?
No.
Okay.
I was just taking a look.
All right, I was making sure. You looked concerned.
No.
They changed up that mentality a little bit for Game 7, and the Sixers just let it happen.
Yeah, and listen, the other thing is you're on the road. It's the third quarter. You seize control and you go on this 16-0 run. And Jess, you mentioned this a lot on the halftime shows that we did on the Squawker app. You got to put your foot on the throat and you can't let up. They had them. They were probably 4 to 6 points away from crushing the windpipe, crushing all the energy out of Toronto. And I know, and look, I get what people are saying. They sub out Embiid during that time. And they go, it's a terrible time to sub. And Mike Missinelli asked a question. What's a good time to sub Joel Embiid out of the game? There really isn't one, but
right.
He can't. Look, even at 40, I know he played 45 minutes, but my God, he was so gassed.
Oh, he was so tired.
So, you have to take him out. And I guess Brett's thought process there is, hey, little cushion, give him a minute or two, which is what he did. And the cushion was down to 5. I mean, it's just, it happened. It happens. But, you got to move. Look, it hurts. It sucks. This one stung. This was one of those rough losses. This was, a loss in the NFC Championship to the Bucks. This was a loss in the Stanley Cup Finals to the Chicago Blackhawks when Patrick Kane just kind of fires it in. But when I was able to look back on it, this was a loss in an unbelievably hard-fought series. This was a loss that very easily could have been a win. And this was a loss that was better than any of the losses, if that's even a thing, in last year's second round where they were just dominated and beaten 5 by the Boston Celtics. So the question has been thrown out there a lot. And I think you might have posed the poll question about the success of the season.
Oh, I'll find that.
Yeah, you got to find out. We'll find out what people said. When I look at it, and actually I'll wait for Jess to give me what the answer choices were again, and I'll tell you what my answer choice is. But
so we have 67 votes on the poll. 36% say they're the question is, what is your satisfaction level with the results of the Sixers season? 36% said happy/hopeful for the 1920 season. 34% said needed to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. 22% said better than last year, and 8% said pissed. Season equals failure. But I also posed the question on all of the other social medias as well, as in, well, all the other social medias, as in all of the Instagram accounts that I run. So on my Instagram, the first one, 45% said happy/hopeful, 55% said needed to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, and then 72% said better than last year, and 28% said season equals failure.
So I'm kind of in between two of your answer choices. Okay. I'm kind of in between, well, it's better than last year. To a certain extent, just from the fact that instead of 5 games, you went 7 and had a chance to win in Game 7.
We're also 50-50 on a different Instagram on the first one.
And I'm halfway between that and really needed to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. So what I would say is I find it to be a semi-successful season. I thought there were steps taken in the right direction with some of the guys. I thought, having this competitive series where you played with one of the elites in the Eastern Conference all the way to the end and really
literally to the end
could have beaten them, maybe should have beaten them, some people would say.
I would.
I thought Brett Brown grew as a coach at times. I thought he made adjustments. I thought there were more good adjustments during this series than bad. Yeah, he still had some bad moments where I was just like, what are you doing? Putting Boban in game, 5 or 6, when he was just trying I understand that he was just trying something out, but no.
Nope.
No. I thought Mike Scott came around as a good bench piece. I thought James Ennis showed them something as a bench piece.
I want Mike Scott here forever.
Yeah, and we're going to get into all that for sure today. So that's why I say semi-successful, because I did want to see them in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah.
Obviously you want to see them as a fan, but from a progression standpoint.
Sure.
I thought it was important. I didn't think it was an absolute failure if they didn't, but I can't call it an absolute success since they didn't.
Yeah, I agree.
If that makes sense.
I agree. And like I said, I said to you before, if they were not going to make it out of the second round, I wanted it to be a very competitive 6 or 7 game, super competitive series. I did not want
it. And it was. It was. Yeah, there were a few.
That's not what I meant. That quadruple doink is not what I meant.
No, you
basketball guys.
So basically, we all now know it's Jess's fault that the quadruple doink went down.
Yeah, but if I started with Sixers and 7. Had the Sixers won, I would have been.
Well, I would have
been impossible to.
I said on halftime live during the game, I said to Jess, I said, look, obviously I want the Sixers to do what they need to do, take care of business and win this game. However, if they do, I might have made Jess do this show solo because there would have been zero living with her. As you hear in our new intro, we put the I was right on there because she says it whenever she's right.
I do.
Never remembers when she's wrong, but she says it whenever she's right.
I just block out when I'm wrong.
And, yeah, I know. I'm aware. Trust me, because then I try and remind you, like, no, that didn't happen. That's not what I said. That's what you do, just to let you know. All right. All right, so let's go to the exit interviews. Let's talk about some of the moments there. One of the moments I'm going to play for you right now because I think it is important. I hope this is.
It's my favorite.
It's not. No, not Brett Brown.
Oh, okay. I'll find
not
that
Brett
one.
Brown. Yeah, you find that. We're going to talk about Brett separate. I want to talk about the players first and I want to try and find this video if I can. I can't find the video.
Ben Simmons?
No. I can't find the video.
I got that one too.
But, we're going to get into the whole Brett Brown thing. And obviously it came out a couple nights ago. The Sixers are retaining him. He's staying. Josh Harris said it to Adrian Wojnarowski. But during the exit interviews, every player basically was asked about Brett Brown. What do you think of the rumors? What do you think of what's out there? And here's Joel. Now, I bring up Joel first because he is the guy for this franchise. And if you think his opinion doesn't matter, you're sadly mistaken. And if you think he just said this to say this, Joel ain't that kind of guy. He's going to say what's on his sleeve. So as he said, and excuse my language for the one moment, but I am going to say it because this is a podcast, and why the hell not?
Okay.
All right. I was off social media. I heard about all these rumors, and I just thought it was bullshit. He's done a fantastic job. He's been there through everything, and then this year I think he grew even more as a coach. He learned. We all learned. It's hard when you've got 5 guys that can basically score the ball and do a lot of things in the basketball court. It's hard to put it together. At the end of the day, it comes down to players. I don't think he should have anything to worry about. He's an amazing coach, a better person, and obviously I've got a lot of love for him. If there was something to blame, put it all on me. Okay? You just... And we'll get to Brett and a couple of his quotes as we kind of push along here on the show. But every player, for the most part, said the same thing. I know people tried to twist Jimmy's words on Brett because he said, it took him a while to understand me. But I think what Jimmy was trying to say is he's a great guy. He allowed me to be me. He did learn who I was and understood it was all coming from a good place. Brett's going to be here a long, long time.
In fact, that's exactly what he said, but people try not to.
No, they wanted to hear it as though he said he didn't like him. I don't think him not liking Brett has anything to do with it. Ben Simmons said he's not putting on the uniform. You heard T.J. McConnell. You heard James Ennis. You heard Mike Scott say, I told Brett and EB, I want to play here for Brett Brown. That was his quote. You heard Tobias say, I love playing for Coach Brown. He said it many times throughout the season. So the ringing endorsement. So for all those people who told me Brett lost the locker room, they don't listen to Brett, Brett doesn't have their attention, you're a jackass. You're a jackass. It's clear. They're not all doing this just to do it.
No.
If they didn't like him and they wanted to win, they wanted to come out and be that straightforward with it. They would be, good guy, but this is the NBA.
You know what makes me more mad? The ones who say that they don't like Brett Brown, they think they should fire Brett Brown, and they want Mark Jackson in here instead.
Or what I like is the guys that say, and Mike Missinelli's done a great job this week of posing this question to all the people calling in saying, how could you bring him back? And he says it to him. He goes, if the Sixers win and go to the Eastern Conference Finals, does Brett deserve to come back? I'd say 9 out of 10 of them. Well, yeah. And he goes, okay, so you cannot justify a quadruple-doink being what costs that man his job.
Right. You also...
They lose in 5? Hey.
Yeah. And another part of it was he also has done a really good job saying, okay, if you're going to tell me that he should be fired, you need to tell me someone who would be better. And the answer is always, well, I'd like to see Mark Jackson. Why?
Well, no, the other answer is not a feasible one. Everyone goes, well, Jay Wright. Yeah, great. Jay Wright doesn't want to leave, maybe. He maybe doesn't want to go. Jay Wright would have been the only way that I would have moved on. If they moved on from Brett Brown this year and we're going to hire another coach, that would have been the only one that would have made me say, intriguing. And I heard this on a national... You
see Jay Wright next year only get to the second round and people are screaming to fire Jay Wright.
Right.
So it doesn't really matter.
And I saw a couple national guys say, look, guy I don't even like. I can't stand Wilbon on part of the interruption. But he brought up a good point. He goes, look, this is absolutely no doubt the right move. He goes, the fact of the matter is this. Who are you going to get that's better right now?
Exactly.
Right now, you're trending upward.
And J.J. Redick said that. J.J. was like, well, there has to be somebody available.
Yeah. I mean, you can't just fire a guy without a plan. And, someone brought this up to me yesterday, a guy whose opinion of basketball I respect tremendously. He was actually the guy that called me an hour before Game 3 and brought me to the game with him. And he called me last night during the draft lottery because he misunderstood it and thought the Sixers were still getting a pick. And he said, and he brought up a great point. He said, Josh Harris, for all the interviews he's done, isn't a basketball guy. Doesn't really know how the game of basketball works. So he relies on people around him. Mm-hmm. He is in full belief, and I could see this, that Josh listens to everyone. He listens to the fans. And Josh sees all the Twitter and all this stuff. Brett Brown's got to go, and puts out those statements earlier in the year. Well, we have to get past what we did last year, or it's a failure, and maybe changes have to be made, right? Because Josh came out yesterday. Oh, he was never on the hot seat. Josh, because of I'm not going to say the majority, but the loud minority, probably wanted to fire him. And I think Elton looked at it and said, whoa. First of all, who are we going to hire? In his own mind, who are we going to hire? Secondly, look at these guys love Brett. Thirdly, back-to-back 50-win seasons for the first time in 20-plus years. All this stuff. And then what happened was when they lose the way they did, well, now Elton can go to the money, being Josh Harris, and say, here's my justification. Made it to Game 7, could have won to her, and now Josh, oh, well, yeah, you're a basket. I'm gonna relegate this to you. I wouldn't be surprised if that's how it went down.
Right.
If Josh wanted him out, but Elton didn't.
And something that we talked about before when we were having one of these millions of discussions about, whether they would fire Brett Brown or not, was one of the things that I said was the guys, I've said this whole time, the only way they were going to fire Brett Brown this season, I truly believe, is if they felt like he lost the locker room or it was going to hinder them signing a Jimmy Butler, Tobias Harris, or another free agent, whoever it may be. Mm-hmm. That was exactly what I thought. Because, firing the coach when the team doesn't want that, they could bring in the best coach of all time. They could bring in somebody who's won, they could bring in a Steve Kerr or, mm-hmm. someone like that. The players just might be pissed. And it doesn't matter how good they are, they're going to resent that coach and the organization for doing that when they did not want that at all. Right. And that plays a big factor into it. And because I think, Brett Brown said, we've built a culture that's extremely attractive to free agents. It's extremely attractive to people that want to come here. And I absolutely agree. I just think that people are idiots. And I also think, something that I said right after this happened was, I am extremely happy that, one, they're keeping him, two, that they made this decision quickly. They came to this very rapidly. They didn't wait on it. They didn't sit on it, because now that's solidified, taken care of, no questions asked. Let's focus on the offseason. It didn't leave that lingering extra thing on the long laundry list of things to do that they have to do this offseason. Keep in mind, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Jonah Bolden, and Jonathan Simmons are the only people under contract for next year. They have to, Simmons. But I'm serious, 4 people. They have to fill out an entire roster. They don't even have a starting 5 under contract. They don't even have 5 players under contract for next season. So adding in the fact that they would also need to find a new coach, that is just too much. It's too much to have to do. They have enough to do already. They've got their first-round draft pick. They have 4 second-round picks. They have free agent. They have a lot of things to do. Right. Finding a coach and figuring all of that out and getting the coach acclimated with the players. That was... I'm extremely happy with the way that they just were like, listen, this is it. Brett Brown's staying. End of discussion. Let's move on.
Do you have the cut? Oh, hold on. I got it. Hold on, I want to start this over, and there's 7 minutes, but I just want to play a little bit. I'm not going to play the whole thing, and sure. I'm hoping what I want to play comes out.
How do I say it? Where do we begin? My discussions with Josh Harris, since I've been employed, have been very direct in relation to, am I going to be the coach or am I not? Those discussions were had clearly, like I'm talking to you now, for a long time. The Toronto series, if that's what you're asking, yes. And I'm also, I'm the son of a coach. You know, I'm the 5th longest tenured coach in the NBA. Coaching doesn't happen for always. It doesn't always happen forever, whether it's my terms or somebody else's. And I'm proud of what we've done here. I love working for Josh Harris and David Blitzer. I'm thrilled to have Elton Brand as one of my however many general managers I've had, and I was one for 3 months. And so when you look back and you look at back-to-back 50-win seasons, we're playing in the semifinals and the ball hangs on the rim what seemed like a month. And we got 2 NBA All-Stars. When I put sort of my rear-view mirror hat on, and I remember, like you do, going to PCOM. We were in PCOM. Think about that, Howard. We were in PCOM. And I had one court. I wouldn't even go down to my players' locker room. I was ashamed. I didn't want to go down there. And now we've arrived at a place that we have a chance for annual success. We have a chance to annually knock out 50-win seasons and truly contest for a championship. I can't look at players or you more sincerely and say that. This is a destination. It wasn't when I came here. In fact, it wasn't even close. What it did have was an amazing city. And it had an amazing basketball-rich history from colleges to the Philadelphia 76ers. And so as we go through this question, which you know is going to come up, I'm proud of where we were and where we are. I understand the lay of the land as a head coach in the NBA just fine. And I sleep fine. And I love coaching my players. We have a culture that they want to be here.
All right. We'll
He's right.
We'll pause it there. Couple things I love about that. First of all, it's all directed because Howard asking. I'm not mad at Howard for asking the question that he asked because it had to be asked, and I'm glad that Brett showed a little edge with it. Brett showed a little confidence in himself.
Brett knew his job was safe, and he went off, and I loved it.
And you know, we have forgotten. We say we haven't, but we have forgotten where this team was. Like, people probably don't remember that they were practicing at PCOM in the city on one court. A professional basketball team's practice facility was PCOM. Okay? And look, I know that right now we're all kind of walking on eggshells. What happens this offseason? You know, but my hope is that what Brett says is what people see. This is a destination. You know, the first guy to start that movement was JJ, right? JJ comes here, yeah, for all the money, but now has talked about how the last 2 years have been some of the most fun years of his life. Mike Scott talks about, you know, his few months here were almost better than any other month in his, months in his career. Jimmy loves the fans. Tobias likes it here. You know, guys that are seen as potential stars and good players in this league have loved their time here. Mm-hmm. Brett Brown deserved to get one more year.
I agree.
With a full roster.
I agree.
And that's what I hope happens here. I hope he has that full roster for training camp, no matter how it's made up, and that they can go after this thing with some maturity from Ben, maturity from Joe, and push forward. And I understand that there are some flaws in his coaching. And you hope that maybe he fixes them over time. And if he doesn't, he'll be out of here. As he said, he knows it's not a finite thing coaching in the NBA.
Right.
But for people to just jump on that, I told you so, he should be fired bandwagon, you're an uneducated fan. And I got ripped. They said, why has he got to be shielded from criticism? I said, no one's shielding him from criticism. No one's shielding him from criticism. But saying he should be fired when you truly don't have the justification is being a jackass.
It's stupid.
So that's my soapbox on you. Look, I know after game one of the first round, I jumped on Brett. But you have to say, outside of that moment, there has been...
You were weak.
In that moment, I was.
You were weak.
But outside of that moment, There has been little to no one who has been more on this side of this, who has screamed to the rafters, who has gotten fights with friends and family to protect my guy, Brett Brown.
I agree.
And I'll do it again.
And I absolutely agree. There's no reason why, and he said it himself. He's like, I've been fired every year I've been here.
I love that quote. 6 years I've been here, I've been fired. I've been fired every single year.
Yeah.
And he said, and I will next year, early. He gets Philadelphia. That's the other thing. He gets it. He's not mad. The guy has consistently said, we have the greatest fans in the world, even though you got all these loud idiots out there calling for his job on a daily basis over an 82-game season. He blew last night's game in game 37. He's got to go. Dude, really? Really?
These are the same idiots that think they should trade Ben Simmons.
Let me ask you this.
These are the same
Let me ask you this.
You can't argue with stupid.
Well, no. I just want to put this question out there. Jess.
Yes.
You're a very smart person. I'm going to ask you. Who's playing in the Western Conference Finals right now?
The Golden State Warriors and the Portland Trailblazers.
The Portland Trailblazers, who have been a team that people have said for the last couple years need to blow it up, need to get rid of their stars. You got to trade CJ, got to trade Dame, you got to trade these guys. You got to fire your coach. Did they do it?
No.
No, what happens? They've grown and matured, and then people want to tell you, well, Dame and CJ shoot. Okay, so they're different type of players.
But then people try to give you the argument of Dwayne Casey. Well, they kept making it to the playoffs and couldn't get over them. Look, and Nick Nurse has him in the...
There's a guy by the name of Kawhi.
Nick Nurse has Kawhi.
If Dwayne Casey... Guess what? If Dwayne Casey was still there, this is probably still the outcome.
I saw a tweet that said something like DeMar DeRozan would have airballed that shot or something, and I was like, that's just messed up.
Yeah, that is messed up.
I was like, that's messed up.
And not only that, okay, you're going to fire Brent. We've talked about this. Look at the coaches that have been hired. The Lakers go to Frank Vogel, who I personally think is a very good coach. And I think he got a raw deal in Indiana. That's it. And then Orlando, he had nobody. Words are very hard. The Cleveland Cavaliers have to go get John Beilein away from Michigan in college. Never in a million years did people expect John Beilein to be coaching in the NBA. Monty Williams, who, by the way, is the assistant to Brett Brown, gets a coaching job. So... who is out there? Look at the guys being interviewed. Don't give me the big names.
You want to bring Ty Lue in here?
Yeah, I mean, really, seriously? You think Ty Lue changes it? Come on, guys.
You think Ty Lue coached that Cavs team? No.
I mean, come on. And look at what the Lakers did. They bring Frank Vogel in, and in my opinion, they're already saying, oh, we own you, because my assumption is LeBron wants Jason Kidd on this staff, so Jason Kidd's on the staff.
Well, that was why Ty Lue backed out, because they wanted to
I'm not mad at Ty Lue. Kudos to you for doing that.
Yeah, he wanted to put together his own assistant coaching staff, and the Lakers said nope. And he said, bye.
Yeah. I wonder, I'm curious where Brett actually talked about it yesterday, building his assistants and getting the new assistant in here and all that stuff, because you're going to need a replacement for two now. Billy Lang, and I'm hoping he brings in a really smart defensive guy, and you got to bring in, another coach. I wonder now, did Jimmy Butler not like Thibodeau, or did they get along?
I think they did get along, and that's why they traded him to Minnesota. Like, that was him and Thibodeau got along, and it was. I'm trying to think of the order that happened. He got fired from Chicago because Chicago was going to go through a rebuild, and Jimmy didn't like the rebuild, but he liked Thibodeau because they were relevant when Jimmy Butler and Derrick Rose were there together.
All right.
And then he went to the Timberwolves, and they traded Jimmy there, and I think Jimmy was excited, but then realized that Cat's soft and Andrew Wiggins is the worst. And it's freaking Minnesota.
All right, so
no one likes Minnesota.
This is a good place to segue away. And what we'll do is, this is just one of the other. Is there anybody else whose interview you wanted to talk about before we get to Jimmy Butler? Is that what you're playing as Jimmy Butler? See, here's our first argument. Okay. This is where I think our first argument comes. I'm pretty sure I can tell you right now that I don't want to say it. We don't argue, Jess. We disagree, and we have a little bit of a back and forth.
I would call
on
there are a few of them we could probably call arguments.
There were a couple where I actually think you were mad at me for 30 seconds.
Yeah, there were a few that I actually got mad.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
This is when I mentioned earlier about there's players on this team that guys, Ben and Joel's games have to mature. Ben has to mature in like the last part of that answer, the last part where he talks about the point of emphasis and that's a good answer. All the little no. What do you mean? Yeah, but he would have done that. See, I understand that, but he would have done that to anybody. You listen to where Joel will come out and say, I suck last night. Okay, that's one way to do it. Where Jimmy will come out and say, look, as a unit, we got to play better. We got to do this. We got to do that. I got to do this. Okay, that's another way. Ben, sometimes, I'm not saying he's not taking the blame, but it comes off that way. You know, almost in like a young guy, well, all right, yeah, okay, whatever. I don't know why shooting. It almost is like he's answering it like, I don't know why shooting's that big of a deal.
All right, I'm gonna pose this to you a different way.
Okay.
Has there ever been something in your life in the last, how long have you and Alyssa been married?
It'll be 6 years.
Okay. And how long were you together before? That's how long have you been together?
Since 2011, so 8 years.
Okay, so in those 8 years, has there ever been something that you had to do or were supposed to do?
Yeah.
And she reminded you about it and asked you about it constantly until it got done?
Happens quite a bit.
How much does that annoy you? Do you start to give her one-word answers, and do you start to get frustrated with her every time she asks?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
How
done with this question do you think Ben is?
Am I? And look, I know.
But here's the thing: don't give me the excuse. I'm not a professional athlete.
I'm not.
He's 22 years old.
Right.
He's 22 years old.
So exactly
he's 22 years old, and he is.
That's exactly what I'm saying. He has to mature. That was an immature answer. It was an immature answer.
Honestly, I don't have a problem with it because at that point, I would have given Howard a piece of my mind, and I think he handled it the right way, so he didn't give Howard a piece of his mind. Because at this point, you really think he doesn't know? You think he doesn't know that he has to add that to his game? He's not a man of many words. This is not unusual for him to give short answers like this. That's not who he is. He's not talkative. He's not over the top emotional. He doesn't wear his emotions on his sleeve like some other players, like, for example, Joel do. That's not who Ben is, okay? So Ben is completely aware. He knows that he needs to get a jump shot. He's heard the rumblings of you need to trade Ben for this, you need to do this, you need to do this. He knows what he needs to do, and absolutely with the aggressiveness, and I agree, that was a better answer to the question. I don't think he's right by doing it, but I don't blame him for doing it because I would be sick of that question too. Because he's not the only person that asked Ben a question like that in that press conference, and But there's a simple way. And here's the thing. To stop the question from happening. I forget who was on the radio with Farzetta and Trey this morning, who they had on, but he said, does Ben? You're around the team a lot. Does it seem like Ben is annoyed with that question at this point? And he goes, honestly, it always seems like Ben's annoyed with every question. He just doesn't like talking to the press. Right. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's not.
And here's the thing. And people were, on KD for how he acted towards the end of the season when he was like, I didn't feel like talking to you guys. Sue me. Yeah. I have no obligation to sit here and talk to you. You're out here to do your job, but to try to draw quotes about me and make your narrative go. And let's talk about the different narratives that different, reporters make go. And sometimes like that. But to say I don't have an obligation is incorrect. You do. It's part of your job. I mean, it is part of the job. It's in the contract that you sign that you will go out and talk to the press. And it's part of you. But they don't always have to. They don't. I mean, they're going to get fined. All right, they make enough money for that. If they don't want to go out there and sit and talk to the press and be berated with questions, they don't have to. Yeah, but to me, then you're in the wrong career. You're in the wrong field. Why? Because he wants to play basketball, and all of a sudden it turns into this media circus. That's what a professional athlete is. No. Yes, it's not. It's in this day and age of social media and all this over-the-top crap that's out there. He did not. So the social media is one thing, but these guys that are reporting are the same guys that have always reported. I understand that, but it has not been this over-the-top scrutinized circus forever. But who's doing most of the scrutinizing? Not the reporters. Who's doing most of the scrutinizing?
It's us.
Sure.
It's the fans.
Sure. But we're not out here trying to gather information to paint false narratives about players, their personalities, their teammates. My point is, Ben is in this career to play basketball. They are in this career to play basketball. If they weren't in this career to play basketball, they would pick another career. Not everybody is made for the media circus.
No one is saying that
you
you're
have
made.
to understand,
no one's saying that you're made for it. But what I'm saying is, it is part of it, whether you want it to be or not.
And I get it, but here's the thing: they had them doing these exit interviews 10 hours after one of the most painful, stinging losses that any of these guys have ever suffered.
Absolutely,
okay?
I agree.
So they're supposed to sit there and be over the top pleasant and give you exactly what you want to hear. Again, that's putting their human emotion aside. That's putting them as people aside, and that's not right.
No, but the whole thing is,
so no one cares.
He gives the right answer. That should have been the initial answer, and then it ends. And if
he answered the questions he was asked, did he not?
I mean, did he?
Yeah.
No.
He said, "Do you think it's important?" Yeah, it's important.
Is it okay?
How do you plan on working on it? Repetition. How through repetition? What?
Is it okay when Russell Westbrook does this?
It should be.
No, it shouldn't.
What does it matter? Why? Give me an answer. Why?
Because who are the reporters reporting for?
They could be reporting for the team. They could be reporting for any website.
No. Reporters are getting information for fans. Okay. So it is important. I'm not saying give your secrets. I'm not saying Ben should go, all right, on Monday from 8 to 10, I'm doing this. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is there's a way to not have to deal with this.
He can just go up there like Marshawn Lynch and everything will be fine.
All I'm saying is, and I said this.
So what about that? Do you have a problem with that too?
Yeah, I have a major problem with that.
I thought that was hilarious.
Was it funny? Yeah, but, it's not right. Why? I've always felt this way.
Why? Why is it not right?
Because it's part of your...
Because someone says he has to do it?
If you didn't like to answer emails from annoying clients, okay, and you just said, you know what, I'm not even doing it today. Is that going to be okay? If it's the same stupid question from a client, right? Or if I have the same stupid... Again,
I'd answer it. Probably wouldn't be over the top happy.
Not asking over the top happy, but you give an answer.
Ben gave an answer, didn't
he?
Ben gave an answer, didn't he?
Saying important.
Ben gave an answer, didn't he?
No.
Really? So he didn't answer the question?
No.
So when he said, is it important? He said, yeah, it's important. That doesn't answer the question?
No. Because
that's the exact question he was asked.
That's being a sarcastic jackass.
All right.
It's being a sarcastic jackass.
So what? 10 hours after he lost a really important game. Again, human aspect. Listen, if they want difference, wait 2 days. Wait 2 days for the exit interviews.
It wouldn't have been any different for him, though.
Brett Brown sounded a little bit different, didn't he?
But that would not have been any different for Ben Simmons. Don't act like he would have came out and all of a sudden answered all those questions. He would have said the same thing. Because Ben has said the same thing all year.
Oh, I'm sorry. So it gets annoying, doesn't it? 82 games a year and he's got to go out there and sit and answer the same damn question about a goddamn jump shot?
It's your obligation.
I don't agree with that. I get that it's in the contract, but he doesn't. It's not in his contract that he has to so eloquently speak and answer every question in paragraph form and have bullet points.
No one is saying it has to be happy.
So what's the argument here?
The argument here is you don't go out there and be sarcastic. And when someone has asked how important is it and you say really important, you're being a jackass. You are. I don't care who you are.
Okay.
If someone asked me that and I said, you're being a jackass.
Maybe he's a jackass. Maybe that's just who he is. What does it matter?
When a kid asks me how important is test and I go, really important, I'm being a jackass. I'm doing it on purpose.
It's an
answer. And guess what? If they go to the principal and tell him that that's what I'm doing, I'm getting in trouble. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying is he has to mature. Ben has to mature.
That's when you ask a follow-up question. How important is this test? Really important. Okay. What does it impact? How does it impact our grade? What percentage does it impact our grade?
That's what's happening.
I see that, and that's fine.
But
Ben did what he was required to do. Maybe he has to mature. Sure, I don't disagree with that. But what I'm saying is I don't have a problem with anything he did because he was answering the question. He's asked the same stupid question about a jump shot. I'm sure he knows. I'm sure him and Brett have talked about it. I'm sure him and Elton have talked about it. I'm sure that this is a very a topic of very high interest and high importance in all of their conversations and all of their meetings. And I'm sure when they had their exit interview with Ben Simmons, they talked about, as Elton Brand said, they talked about what needs to happen, where he needs to grow, and what he needs to do. So I'm sorry if Ben is tired of answering the question to Howard Eskin, who is also a jackass. And he's just tired of answering the question. That's all it is.
Okay, and that's fine. But it doesn't mean that you can't. What I'm saying is there is a respect factor. Like, you're acting like these guys are just out there because they want to annoy you. These guys are doing their job.
I understand that they're doing their job.
The reporters are doing their job.
But you know that it's like the same guys that come out to the Eagles press conferences, and Doug says, all right, we're going to talk about Eagles rookie minicamp. And he says, when's Carson Wentz going to be on the field? What's he doing? His back. He goes, is that a question about rookie minicamp? Do you have a problem with Doug acting like that?
Do I? Yes, I do. You see,
and he said, "Is that about rookie minicamp?" That's fine. That's fine. I'm just saying, like, he says, "Okay, we're going to talk about rookie minicamp," and some jackass is in there trying to poke and poke and poke, and Doug's and you're like, "Listen, I'm out here to talk about this. This is what we're going to talk about."
I'm not saying that there's not jackasses who try and poke and poke and poke, but
that's what Howard is.
But let me put it to you this way. And then I want to move on because there is a lot more that we want to get into here. My whole point, we could save that. My whole point with that is there are idiots that poke, but then there are guys that say, okay, what's the biggest story around the Eagles right now that my readers want to read about? That's why those questions get asked so many times. That's all I'm saying.
Understood. But
that's all I'm saying about that.
So see,
this was a good. We
just when it comes to Ben,
we've done a good job here. We had a very nice debate without hating each other.
I hate you a little bit, but
wow.
So just when it comes to Ben, like, I just don't think.
Yeah, the soft spot. It's okay. Yeah, a little soft spot for Ben. That's all right. I like Ben.
I love me some Ben Simmons.
I thought it was dumb when people wanted to trade him. I'm with you there. Like,
that's the thing. Like,
I'm not saying these things and then call me and saying this is why I want Ben. It's not a matter of wanting Ben.
No. I just think that it's part of that. Like, it's part of the human aspect that we've talked about. Like, you can't just expect, people get fed up. Like you said, I can get fed up with annoying clients. You can get fed up with your like, we all get fed up. And this is, I'm sure, one thing that Ben has heard about for the last 4 years of his life.
I'll tell you what, fix it then. I mean,
I'm with you.
Yeah, we're in agreement on that.
We're there.
That. But that's how you want this question to stop now?
Right. But you
got 4 months.
But again, you don't think he knows that. Like, it's just to the point where, like, he's just like, dude, like. So I think he's just trying to answer, get through it, and, like.
Honestly, I don't think the question would be this much. It's funny. I don't think he'd get that question this much, even if he took the shots and missed all of them. It's the fact that he hasn't taken them, which is why people start to worry about, is this a head thing, right? Mm. Because there's a lot of guys that can't shoot when they come in the league.
Sure.
They still take a 12-foot jump shot.
Right.
So, all right. I want to play this. It's only a couple minutes, but because this is one of the big things I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
And it's kind of moving us into where do the Sixers go from here. So let's play Jimmy Butler from the other day. If I can get it to actually come up. That would be great. You want to come up? I had it up, and then we got into a big debate, and so in retrospect, I'm blaming us for this not coming up.
I'm blaming you.
But something tells me this could lead me and you to another disagreement.
Oh, great.
Although not as, I don't think it will get.
I hope not, because I'm exhausted now.
That wasn't heated. That was just us each kind of making our.
I was heated. I was told that I was too loud.
Yeah, but understand. Yeah, but I'm okay with that, Jess, because this is sport. That's what sports radio is. That's what we're doing here.
I was just told that my microphone's too loud.
Is having moments.
Yelling.
You don't have to stop yelling, Jess.
Thanks.
All right, this is not the one I wanted. What the hell?
What are you doing?
I want to talk about Jimmy.
Okay, we can talk about Jimmy. I love me some Jimmy.
Okay, I want to talk about Jimmy, and I want to talk about a big fear of mine.
That he leaves.
I really talk to my team, not like the team here with the organization, but I have so many guys that sacrifice so much to make sure that I'm able to play at a high level. I want to make sure that their families are happy just like I'm happy. Some of them are away from their family right now. Obviously, I just got here in November, so their families aren't here. I'm not here long term just yet, so we take it back to the crib and we get all the families together, go on a short vacation, and sit down and map it all out.
What was your experience like with Brett this year, both regular season, playoffs? What was your relationship like?
It's constantly growing, that's for sure. We just had a slight convo downstairs, and I think he realized how different of a human being that I am. How I can be difficult at times, but I swear it's from the right place. I want to win. I work so hard and I study my game and everybody else's. But I think he has a huge heart. He's a great dude, and he works incredibly hard, so you got to respect that about him. And he's always thinking of how he can make everybody great, which is hard to do whenever you have a roster like we have / had. But I think he's going to be here for a long time.
Is this team right now
Howard's everywhere.
Is built to win a championship? And a second question is, you had said when you came here, money is not a factor. I don't know that your agent agrees with that, but is a max contract important for you for your next deal?
I mean, technically, knock on wood, hopefully, I'll get a max contract anywhere I choose to go. So I don't think, you're talking 4-year, 5-year. That's more than enough money anyways. I think I still have more than enough money now from my first deal. And I'm not worried about Burnley and if he thinks money is this or that. But talking about this roster, it is, man. We just had a slight hiccup. But I think what hurts more than a loss is the fact that we had a great group of guys that was riding for one another. It was special. We enjoyed playing with each other. You couldn't mess with anybody on the team because somebody else was always going to be there in your face. But to think that this roster may not be the exact same next year, that's what really hurts.
Okay. It was important for me to play all that. Before I get to my feelings, Jess, you hear that. You've watched Jimmy this year. Obviously, me and you have been in a love affair with Jimmy since day one and have both agreed.
Since I brought him here?
Yes. Oh, my God. But both of us have.
I would just like to let you know, I told Carson Wentz I was responsible for Jimmy Butler coming.
Oh, yeah. And what did Carson say to that?
He was like, apparently you're right.
No.
I told him the story, and he was like,
Carson.
you're right.
Carson, I know now that you're friends with Jess that you're listening. Don't listen to everything she says. I got some good ideas too, Carson.
You don't. He doesn't.
That's
mostly
not.
mine.
That's not nice. No, that's not nice.
I'm just kidding.
Man.
Relax.
But where do you stand right now after hearing his comments on Jimmy?
It absolutely makes me nervous. I don't know.
So maybe we're not going to disagree.
No. Did you hear that? It does make you nervous.
Everything he said since the game ended
makes me
sounds
nervous.
like a goodbye. Having Ben and Joel are the cornerstones is really great for this organization. Brett's a great dude, and he'll be here for a long, long time. I can get a max anywhere I go.
No, I know. It's nerve-wracking.
Here's the thing. I do believe.
I think it'll be a giant L if they lose him.
I do believe the Sixers will offer him the Birds right max, the extra year, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't believe it's going to be a matter of the Sixers screwing this up. My fear is Jimmy didn't love it here as much as we thought. And he has his heart set on a certain destination. Clippers, Knicks, Nets. I don't know. That's my fear. Is that the Sixers that the Sixers offer him the 5-year 190 whatever it is, and he turns it down. I don't know what his people thought about Philadelphia, his team, as he talks about. I know he was super close with Remy, who we had on the show. And, look, Remy made a rousing support that he loved it here, that Jimmy loves it here. And if you watch Jimmy Butler's Instagram, Remy is always there.
Yeah.
He's always there because Jimmy's always mocking him, making fun of him. T.O.'s at his house playing dominoes the other day. Remy was there. Like,
Right.
Remy and him obviously formed a nice little bond since November.
They were in somewhere.
Yeah,
The All-Star
during the
break
All-Star
together.
break together.
Costa Rica?
You know, I would love to see if we can get Remy back on now that the season has ended. To
Yeah.
see if he can make us feel a little bit better about this. We might have to reach out to Remy to see if we can get him back on to talk about what to expect going forward with this team. And we could talk to him about the maturation, obviously being around the guys of a
Right.
Ben and a Joel, and what he thinks about Jimmy. And so just a thought. But I'm majorly concerned that Jimmy spurns us and goes somewhere else.
I don't really have anything to add to that.
You don't like it, so you're just not going to add anything to
No, I'm just going to wait to see what happens, and then I'll figure it out from there.
Come on, Nostradamus, tell me, is he coming
Yeah.
back?
I don't know.
You told me Bryce Harper would be a Philly. It was a Philly. You told me
did.
Golden Tate would be traded. Golden Tate would be
Sorry,
traded.
that's just a reflex.
Yeah. Golden Tate would be traded to the Eagles. He was traded. Will Jimmy Butler be back in the Sixers uniform for the next 5 years?
Don't yell at
Well, he
me.
signed a contract.
Don't yell at me.
I'm not yelling. I'm getting excited.
I don't think that was excited.
I was excited.
You're yelling at me.
Please.
I don't know. I'm just going to kind of wait to see what happens over the next couple weeks.
This is all because Jess found an old tweet of hers talking about LeBron and
No,
saying
it's
this.
not.
Yeah, I saw
That
that
made me
today.
Well, if I didn't want anybody to see it, I wouldn't have posted it again today.
Yeah.
Duh. I would have just seen it on my time hop and then deleted it if I didn't want anybody to see it ever again.
It's like every time
Duh.
Bleacher Report comes up, I get nervous that it's going to be something like, and part of my fear is this. You had Rajon Rondo basically come out and say Jimmy's not going back to Philly, like he knew. When he was on one of the shows before one of the games. He literally said, somebody said, yeah, I mean, who knows who's going back to Philly? He said he ain't going back. Now, that was after game 1, right before game 2, I believe. So who knows? Look, I look at all the free agents, right? And it's basically everybody but the 4 you said. And here's the way I look at the...
No, it is everybody but the 4 I
said. Here's the inner working. Here's the way I look at it. I want to pull up a list because of the free agents, because I want to tell you who I want to keep, who I want to go. So I'm trying to pull it up on the computer as we talk about this. Let's go with the main guys. I want to keep Jimmy. Mm-hmm. Let me put it this way. I think you have to keep Jimmy. Okay?
Yep.
I personally would like to keep JJ, but on a much lower number off the bench.
I want them to just say...
Off the bench.
I wanted them to say, JJ, how many more years do you want to play in the NBA? And then they give him a contract. That's the veteran minimum for however many years that is. And he will be coming off the bench.
When it comes to a Tobias, I think you have to do it gingerly. Now, that's if you get... This is the scenario in which Jimmy comes back here, right? I'm trying to...
Are you looking for the free agents from our team or just that are people that are free?
No, just from our team right now.
Okay, I can tell you. It's TJ McConnell, Furkan Korkmaz, Tobias, Jimmy, JJ, Boban, Mike Scott, James Ennis.
I know, but you just said
Greg
all them.
Monroe.
You just said all them. 76ers.
Okay, ready? I'll say it for you again. TJ McConnell.
He can go.
Amir Johnson.
Amir can go.
Boban Marjanovic.
Boban, I hate to say it.
Greg
there's
Monroe.
no spot for him. No, goodbye. All the centers are gone.
Tobias. Gingerly.
I wouldn't mind them keeping him at the right number. I don't think I'd give him a max. I think is where I'm at.
Jimmy, obviously.
Jimmy, you give him 6 maxes if you can.
I just lost my train. JJ Redick. We just talked about that. Mike Scott, here forever.
I want Mike Scott as a
contract.
supreme bench player.
James Ennis.
I want James Ennis back on a bench player deal.
Furkan, I will buy his plane ticket.
Furkan bought his own. Did you hear? I think it's hysterical that every guy's got to do an exit interview.
Yeah.
And Furkan's out there and he's just like, it was a good time here. I'm looking forward to the future.
I can't wait to leave.
It was awesome.
I asked for a trade and I'm still here.
Yeah, I asked for a trade and 4 guys have left and I'm still here. So that's look, the guys. Listen, I know TJ's a fan favorite. I know we all love him, but we need a backup point guard that can play minutes, and do things so that when the point guard comes in, maybe Ben can stay in and go down low or whatever it might be. So that's the way. So if it goes the way I want it to go, okay, it's the roster is made up of Ben, Joel, Zaire, Bolden. I think they're going to get rid of Jonathan Simmons. I know he's under contract, but I think they're just going to say goodbye. All right, so let's go those 4. Then Jimmy.
Did you say Bolden in that starting?
No, it's not starting. I'm just going guys on the roster.
I was like,
No, they're here. Okay, Jimmy, we said, Mike Scott, James Ennis.
And then they've also got their two-way players like Haywood Highsmith and Shake Milton.
You'll probably see a Shake Milton. But then, so say that's 8 guys. I didn't mention Tobias, and I didn't mention JJ. If they both come back, there's 10 guys. All right, what's the roster going to be? 12? In my opinion, you need a backup center that you're not afraid to put in when you have to spell. Now, there's been a lot of names out there. Brooks Lopez is a name that's been thrown out there. Is Dwayne Dedman a free agent?
I don't know.
I thought that's what you were looking at.
Well, it's not like easy. There are a lot of play. There's like 500 players in the NBA.
Right. Isn't it amazing how much we all forget that because you only see the guys.
You're asking me to look for things that are just like. Yeah. I'm trying to separate it by position so I can tell you the centers that are free agents.
Right. That's what I'm kind of doing myself.
Well, I initially went points per game, and that's the only thing I can separate. Okay, so you've got in centers, you've got DeMarcus Cousins, you've got Dwight Howard.
No, remember we're looking for backup.
I understand that.
I know what you're saying.
I'm just reading them down the list.
I'm just saying to the people.
Brooke Lopez.
I'd consider.
So they were talking about this one on the radio. Nick Vucevic.
I consider Vucevic. The other one a lot of people are bringing up, although I guess it's more of a power forward, but you could play him for Joel. Nerlens Noel.
Is he a free agent?
Mm-hmm.
Where was I? Vucevic, Marc Gasol, Hassan Whiteside.
No.
Greg Monroe, Valanciunas.
Valanciunas would be interesting.
Enes Kanter.
Which should have been here in the first place. They screwed that up. They dropped the ball on that one.
Jaleel Okafor.
Excuse me? Please don't do that because
I'm reading the list of free
I
agents.
still got ripped. I still get ripped because I was
Willie
such
Cauley-Stein.
He'll probably go back to Sacramento. They're trying to build.
Andrew Bogut.
So they're okay. All right, you've read enough.
DeAndre Jordan.
All right.
Robin Lopez.
Okay. Jess.
Tyson Chandler.
Jess, stop it. Stop it now.
JaVale McGee.
There's enough people out there
I'll take JaVale
where you
McGee.
could get a backup center to come here. The other two positions I want to
Zaza
see.
Pachulia.
Oh my God, you're still going.
I am.
Do I have to turn your mic off?
No, and yes, Dedman's a free agent.
Do I have to mic drop you?
That'd be so messed
Just
up.
drop your mic.
That'd be so messed up. No, we're getting into the players that are irrelevant and no one knows who they are.
Okay. Well,
It was going by points per game. That's where.
Listen, we only got about 5 minutes left. So
Oh, you're right. Crap.
we got to go a little shorter today because
Rob's
I'm getting
fault.
ready for a trip to Florida.
Jealous.
Forgive me.
Where in Florida are you going again?
Marco Island. No idea where it is, but I know that the place we're staying is my wife's aunt and uncle's. Thank you very much to them for the place.
You're not going to Disney?
No. But there's no kids on this trip. So this is like
Oh,
the
right,
truest.
Baby Moon.
Yeah, this is the truest rest and relaxation trip I've had
How long are you going
since
for?
the girls were one. Just Thursday to Sunday. A little long weekend.
It's fun.
Long weekend of
Cool.
and with Alyssa pregnant, it's not like I'm going to have to feel like I have to go out and party every night. It's going to be so nice to just relax.
Get some good food.
Get some good food, a couple drinks for myself,
Relax.
sit out on the water, every night. It's going to be
Sounds
wonderful.
fantastic.
It's going to be wonderful.
Sounds fantastic.
Um,
I'm jealous.
but here's a couple of names that I'm just going to throw out there, and we'll talk about this as we get closer for agency.
Okay.
Patrick Beverly, Danny Green, Wayne Ellington. These are guys. Wayne Ellington is a guy that if you can't get one of these other guys to come be a bench player for you, I wouldn't mind that. Now, if you sign a Danny Green, that's almost – I'm saying you're doing that as if maybe Tobias has moved on.
Sure.
And Danny steps into that slot. A little better on defense, still a much better shooter. May not be able to get his own shot as good as Tobias, off the dribble. But, we'll see. I mean, it's really going to be an interesting – we thought last year was going to be an interesting offseason. It was so weird how during the season they had 3 different teams. And now it's like well, what do they do now? All these guys are free agents. Where can they go? And Elton's going to make his money or become the
Public
scapegoat.
enemy number one.
Yeah, in a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
And we'll see how that all goes.
And they moved the free agency date up.
They did move the free agency date up to June 30th.
So people aren't calling free agents at 3 a.m.
Yeah, June 30th at 6 p.m., right?
Yep.
So we'll start getting a bunch of guys.
Yep,
Oh,
that'll
damn.
be it.
My buddy that I was telling you about, Jamal, said he's at work, and there's a TV screen there, and it was black, and then all of a sudden, just the white noise came up. He said he immediately thought of The Ring and started to freak out. All right, so this is Madness. You got anything?
Here's a fun one. I think Boban's in John Wick 3.
What? Aaron Rodgers was in Game of Thrones.
I know. I
He
saw.
got his ass lit up.
I sent that to Andrew, and he was like, "I totally didn't notice that." And then I saw the clip on like Bleacher Report or something. I sent it to him, and he was like, "Oh my god, I remember that."
Oh yeah, I remember.
I didn't know it was Aaron Rodgers.
I remember the scene perfectly, and I was like, "That was Aaron." I was like, "How about that?" That was crazy. But go ahead.
Yeah, apparently Boban's in. He just tweeted a picture. He's in John Wick 3. Like he makes a cameo in John Wick.
Oh, I didn't want that to start yet.
Oh, look what you did.
Well, someone would give me the cord every now and again.
Nope, you don't get the cord. Here's a funny story. So I told you I was hobbling around on my crutches last week.
Yes.
And yeah, I was hobbling down the street, and there was this girl that walked by me, and I'm just like, I'm moving along. Like I don't really look like I'm struggling. It's hot out, tired, whatever. And she literally stops, looks at me, and goes, "Ouch," and kept walking. And I was like. I was like, "Excuse me?"
That's fantastic.
Fight you with my crutches. Like, what is this?
That is fantastic.
Oh, here's one other thing. Apparently, no, they haven't been here. People haven't been hearing from that. So, like the Ben Simmons clip that I played, no one heard that.
No one heard your Ben Simmons clip?
No, so I was laughing at nothing.
So no one's going to hear this if I play it?
I have no idea.
Okay, so I'm not even going to use it. I'm just going to go up to the microphone.
So what do you have for
it.
This Is Madness?
All I'm going to say is this.
Oh,
Jess, I know you've probably had TV shows in your life that you've really liked, right?
Sure.
That you've loved, and then the final season comes and you're like watching it. I'm beginning to get frustrated with fans of Game of Thrones who are literally just looking for things to nitpick after every single episode. Oh, well, I mean, it's one thing to but then they're like, the writers don't care anymore. Well, no, that's not true. They put 10 years of their life into this show. Just because it's not going the way you wanted it to go, it drives me nuts the way people are reacting. Like, oh, well, I mean, why would you have nobody?
Spoiler alert's coming.
No, but why would you have?
Figured I'd warn.
Why would you have this person not die, or why would you have this person die? And it's like, dude, just watch the show. Because the fact of the matter is, and this is one of the podcasts I listened to said, in a week, there will not be I wonder what's going to happen next. It's over. It's done. So, I didn't love last week's episode, but it was still cool. People were just burning up. They were just firing an entire town that the whole thing is she wanted to rule in this area on the Iron Throne, right? You've heard the Iron Throne mentioned.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure she just burnt the Iron Throne. She lost her damn mind. It was insane. And I just kept saying, it was in Family Guy, have you ever watched Family Guy? When Peter's fighting the chicken and you're like, wow, this is still going on?
Yeah.
That was I was like, she is still lighting these people up. Nothing was stopping it. I just don't like the way people take a show that they've loved for years and now it's the final season, but it's not going exactly the way they wanted to, are going to just nitpick like no other and say the writers are lazy and stink now. Just relax. On every show. Not just Game of Thrones, on every show. You with me, Jess?
Sure.
Sure? I'm just going to play this as I talk here. This is really awkward, but Jess told me the cord's not working. And damn it, if you don't hear our ending song, you don't hear our show. It's really loud right now.
Yeah, just turn that down your phone.
No, yeah.
Duh, because you still have to talk.
Do I, though? Do I? It was a good show, though, Jess. I thought we had some good banter here.
Yeah, we did.
Sad to see the Sixers season end.
Ugh.
What the hell are we going to talk about next week?
My dinner with Carson went.
Yes, we will get into that. Jess had dinner with Carson, and he's now the number one fan of the show and
friend.
Jess's best friend.
Not really. I just love him.
We will be back next week.
Anyone ever says a bad word about him to me ever again, you're immediately getting punched in the throat.
Oh, my God. Here we go.
Don't ever try.
Jesus. You're not allowed to criticize, guys. Jess likes him. No
Never.
criticism.
Never.
Just ask me when I criticize Ben.
This is more serious.
It was fun. We will be back next week, maybe bringing you some guests. We're going to need something, Jess, over
Here's
the next
hoping.
few weeks to kill the time because, I mean, we do a good job of talking, but that's when there's a lot to talk about.
You want me to talk for 2 hours, I'll talk for 2 hours.
None of us want that. Let's get some guests. I'm kidding, Jess. I'm kidding. All right. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Check us out. Fridays 9 to 11. Head over to iTunes on all the places you can get podcasts. We love you. Embrace the madness. Have a good week.